In the last video, we kickstarted off this adventure, went to Goron and Zora to help them out with their problems, and we got the Master Sword. And in this part of the video, we will continue the story with where we left off. Also, if you haven't seen the last video, I highly recommend doing that, because otherwise you might be lost about what I'm doing here and what I'm explaining and talking about. And I'm not gonna go over all that again. Next, we adventure over to the Hebra region. On the way, you can climb Snorey Mountain, where you can find all kinds of wildlife and resources. On top is a beautiful cherry blossom tree overlooking a small pond. Near the base of the mountain are the thieves' hideout, resembling the Kakariko village from A Link to the Past. Here reside a lot of petty thieves and criminals hiding out, as well as the return of the Iga clan. They are the most respected criminals in the village. Right outside the village, you can cross the bridge. If you cross the bridge, you eventually arrive in Rito village covered in snow. The Rito are the only way to reach your next objective in the clouds. However, right now that's impossible because of a fierce blizzard. Here's a Kingdom reference. You'll also have to travel along the Great Chasm to reach Snow Peak. First, you can encounter a small mountain village, Majora's Mask callback. You can also explore and snowboard slash snow shield? What's that word? I lost it. Shield surf. Snowboard slash shield surf around the mountain until you encounter your next dungeon. A giant abandoned mansion. This is of course a nod to Snow Peak in Twilight Princess. Once you've beaten the dungeon, you can find the Spring of Wisdom at the end and find the Rito Sage of Wind. Mastery of the bow. The items to collect here are the iron boots. This way you can walk slow, but you can't be knocked over. And you can also walk around on the seafloor. Also, Return of the Ball and Chain is here. With this, you can shoot yourself while walking around from the front and break stuff like ice blocks without having to wait with a torch or campfire. The ice rod is also here. With it, you can freeze enemies and keep yourself cool. Lastly, if you have the right resources later, you can craft ice arrows. You need snow armor to travel through the cold snow easier. You can also find snow boots to make walking in snow easier. You can find the Phantom Hour 2 in the mansion for great defense. Ravio's hood is also hidden in the thieves' hideout. Maybe you might even need it to enter the village, I don't know. The wildlife here consists of wolves and mountain goats. And a lot of wolfos reside here as well. And near the thieves' hideout are a lot of wizrobes and the return of the Erameans. The two bosses are your first real strong one-on-one match, a knight with a ball and chain, and a Blizzard boss, where you can use reflection of the eyes to dodge attacks. The deity protecting the Spring of Wisdom is a giant sky wheel like Levias, or the Windfish. Satori can also be found roaming on Satori Mountain. I'd really like if a rendition of the palace theme from A Link to the Past, from Adventure of Link placed in the dungeon, as well as a more mystic version of Cass's theme from Breath of the Wild on Mount Satori. And of course, Dragon Roost Island from Wind Waker should again be the theme of Doritos, with maybe a callback to Rivali's theme in there. I'd love if some of these songs have an accordion to represent Cass. Also, can I just say real quick, I just discovered some Breath of the Wild concept art, and I'd love to see some of these designs come back in later Zelda games. Now that you stop the blizzard, the Rito will help you get up to the Sky Islands. Here are the return of the Zonai and the next dungeon, where the inside is like a futuristic factory where constructs are created, like the Lanayru mine in Skyward Sword. Here resides the Zonai Sage of Spirit. The Rito gave you a grappling hook and a paraglider to make reaching and traversing the Sky Islands easier. Later, the Zonai can help you upgrade your grappling hook for the claw shots, which makes climbing mountains much faster. I never understood why they didn't want to add the claw shots. Like, I get you can climb, but claw shots can make it go faster as a late game item. Like, why not? Late game items are all about making things easier, but whatever. You also get the boomerang here. With it you can hit and stun multiple targets fast. The armor you get here is the gliding suit. Now you can maneuver better while skydiving. And Midnight's helmet to make the decrease of magic less. The monsters here consist of Kargarok, Aerophos, Beamos, and Halmrock King as an overall boss. Speaking of bosses, the ones you can find here is Godon, classic floating head and hand boss, and a King Gleeok. The songs that play here are the Tears of the Kingdom main theme and Four Swords Vati's theme. Once you return for your report to the castle, you find it in ruin. Impa brings you to her hometown, northeast of Hyrule Castle, and on the southwest base of Death Mountain. So as you may notice, I basically swapped Korak Forest and Kakariko Village, mainly because this resembles Ocarina of Time a bit more, but also, I believe this is actually how it was in Breath of the Wild's development. This Kakariko closely resembles the eastern style of Breath of the Wild's Kakariko, because the Sheikah live here, and they are, you know, ninja? The village has once again the iconic windmill, however, and a graveyard, as well as a well, and you know what that means. In the well is the return of the Shadow Temple, where Impa awakens as the Sage of Shadow. In this place you can find the Dominion Rod to make statues move and make them attack like a big bodyguard, almost like the Zonai Construct, or is that what it's called? What mineral possesses. You can also purchase Deku Nuts to blind enemies, as well as upgrade your power bracelet to the silver gauntlets to lift even heavier objects. Later you can also craft ancient arrows. There are a couple of armor pieces and sets here you can buy and get. In the stores are the stealth outfit to be more sneaky, ancient armor to deal more attack and defense with ancient weapons, and the gloom outfit to have a better resistance against malice / gloom, so your hearts don't break as fast, because that's definitely a feature I really like. You can also obtain a cloak to wear as a hood, and find Majora's Mask to let enemies not notice you as much. The wildlife in this village are mostly cuckoos. As for enemies, here in the well you can find the most terrifying enemies in Hyrule. Let's start with the return of the Re-Dead. When this monster shrieks, you freeze in place. It tries to creep closer to take a bite. You can also find the Bubbles who curse you, draining your life force slowly. There are Like-Likes who try to eat you and your disposable equipment. Armos that act like statues but try to execute you if you come too close. And also the Floor Masters who will act like the Gloom Hands who try to reach for you and squeeze the life out of you. And also Wall Masters that try to get the drop on you and returning to the entrance. As for the village, there are only the annoying Gways who try to poo on you and attack from the night sky. The only real boss here is the return of Deadhand. I think it's time to scar some more kids. It's been long enough. The music I'd like to hear should be played with an ocarina as main instrument, since Ocarina of Time was when the Sheikah and Kakariko as a whole really got a reputation. The songs I'd like to hear are, of course, Ocarina of Time's Kakariko theme, but more Eastern inspired. Inside the Windmill should be a rendition of the Song of Storms, and the Shadow Temple should consist of Twilight Princess Midnight's Lament and Ocarina of Time's Nocturne of Shadow. Next is another huge area to explore. You will pass the Colosseum and a small town resembling Clocktown. Past it is like a savanna which leads to a great canyon with a big waterfall. In the canyon is a small western forgotten village with a graveyard. If you scale the canyon, you will find a long wooden bridge on top, with a view on Spectacle Rock. When crossing the bridge, you'll encounter the Gerudo Training Grounds. Past it is an area resembling Ikana, with another abandoned graveyard and a lone house where a scientist lives, researching the monsters in the area. Majora's Mask reference. You can scale a huge tower resembling Stone Tower, and if you do, you'll find another village, this time being similar to the Kakariko in Twilight Princess, where the Gerudo and Rito gather for trade. Next to it is a small palace as a mini dungeon like Ikana Castle. If you head towards the desert, you can find the last Great Fairy in Spectacle Rock. In case you didn't notice until now, the Great Fairy locations are also a nod to Ocarina of Time. They're kind of in similar places. Out in the desert is Gerudo Town, and around the desert are plenty of sandstorms, quicksand, sinkholes, and enemy fortresses. The temple here has 3 parts, one like the Spirit Temple in Ocarina of Time, one like the Desert Colosseum in Twilight Princess, and one slightly resembling a pyramid. I guess like Tears of the Kingdom-ish. Each part is full of traps and all need to be completed in order to open the boss door. Here you awaken the last sage, a Gerudo, Sage of Lightning, wielder of dual swords, and finally you can make it back with the 7 sages to Hyrule Castle, which now has been made Ganon's Castle. In the villages scattered around the place, you can upgrade your slingshot to a scatter shot, being able to shoot multiple pellets. You can also finally obtain the bow and the hawk eye for sniping enemies. In the desert you can find the sand rod to make sand platforms appear, lightning rod to electrify enemies, the beetle to scout the surrounding area and upgrade your silver gauntlets for the golden gauntlets, and craft electric arrows. The 2 dungeon items are the mirror shield to blind enemies and to solve light-based puzzles, and the spinner. With it you can spin around Hyrule with double the speed and ride over enemies. This way it'll be less useless. And I guess you can also still ride up certain walls that have a railing on them. You can get the climbing gear to speed up climbing. I know at this point you might already have the claw shots, but I still think the more options the better to soothe any kind of player's playing style. Maybe there's people who enjoy like taking it slow and climbing actual mountains, you know. There are also sand boots to make traversing the sand smoother, and the Gerudo Vow outfit for the desert heat, and the Gerudo Vi outfit for sneaking into Gerudo Town. The wildlife here in the canyon and mountains is full with the returning robes from the 2D games. There are so many returning wildlife they could have used in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. I don't know why they didn't choose some of these. And in the desert, of course, are the sand seals. The Colosseum right next to Clocktown houses a Lionel to battle, and around it are peahats that hide like weeds and jump out of the ground if you come too close. If you stun them, you can use your claw shots on them to reach certain higher places faster or just have the high ground. In the canyon and the mountains reside a lot of style children and pose. I also like to see the return of those weird monkey fish things in Skyward Sword that hide in little crevices and breathe fire if you come too close. The desert is where the Pole's voice reside. They can only be defeated by loud noises. Leaves return here too, as well as the mummified Gibdos. In some sinkholes hide a Geldman. The bosses here are Star-Lord, Molgera, who hide in the sand and try to eat you from underneath, much like Moldugas, but the Molgeras can actually fly in the air. And the Iron Knuckles, possessed Gerudo warriors by Ganondorf. The music should consist with a lot of pan flute. Clocktown should of course have the Majora's Mask Clocktown music with a bit of Song of Healing. The path to the hidden village should sound like Tall Tall Mountains from A Link to the Past, and the hidden village should also have the Twilight Princess hidden village theme. The bridge crossing the canyon, please make it a rendition of Ocarina of Time's Gerudo Valley. As for the training grounds, I'd like to hear the Twilight Princess's Kakariko theme. While climbing the stone tower from Majora's Mask should play. And while reaching the top village, I'd like to hear Spirit Tracks Full Steam Ahead, but maybe a bit slower, fitting the mood for the village. While in the desert, I'd like a softened theme of Molgera's theme, and in the temple, Requiem of Spirit and Urbosa's theme. Now it's time to tackle the final dungeon in Ganon's castle. Next to the castle is a sewer that goes to the prison cells and graveyard. Of course you traverse and beat Ganon's castle. I would like it if the sages help you maybe craft a bridge towards Ganon's castle with like their magical powers, again just like in Ocarina of Time. And if you again have like the long staircase to Ganon's lair. You fight the boss, save Hyrule, and the journey is over. In the castle you can find the all-powerful light arrows locked away. The only wildlife here are the little rodents, being the rats that scurry in the sewers and the prison cells. As for monsters, it'll likely be the toughest versions of already encountered enemies, along with the reintroduction of the style foes, who we have to battle and kill with blowing up the pile of remains once you bested it. Otherwise, it will reanimate. The mini bosses here are the most experienced soldiers possessed, the Dark Knight. Again, I cannot believe they were not in either Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. Such a missed opportunity. The songs I'd like to hear is Breath of the Wild's Hyrule Castle theme, since it has a lot of references already to Zelda's Lullaby, Ganon's theme, the Hyrule Castle theme in general. But I'd also like if Link Between Worlds Laurel Castle theme had a reference in it, since it already is kind of like a darker version of Hyrule Castle. So for the final part of this video, I want to talk about the collectibles. I really want to see the return of heart pieces and hidden skills again. They are such a good reward for exploring Hyrule and growing stronger because of it, especially since Hyrule is now bigger than ever in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Like, it really just encourages the player to seek them out and explore Hyrule even more. Of course, heart containers should stay for beating a dungeon, and I think I do like the inclusion of the stamina wheel and vessel, and I love the inclusion of finding armor to customize yourself, even though it's technically supposed to be used for strategy and buffs and stuff. Again, I do want to clarify, you can go to all of these places whenever you want, but it'd just be way harder to get anything done. I also purposely didn't fill all the temples with bosses, for still plenty of room for original creative enemies and bosses. Same with the music and armor. And just for this video, I made the monsters and bosses a bit more environmental, just so that I didn't have to keep repeating the same monsters over and over. If you made it this far, thank you so much. You are incredible. Thanks for listening and going through this pipe dream journey of mine. I know this exact thing will never happen, but I guess I just wanted to show some light on some of these classic elements and show how they could return in this new open air format. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you in my next video. Later!